Okay, so hello class. In this recording, we're going to talk about the differences between traditional assessment and authentic assessment. Okay, so our main reference for the contents on this part of the module will be Mueller from 2018. Okay, so sabi ni Mueller dito, ang traditional assessment daw is the forced choice measures of multiple choice and the different types of objective tests that are meant, okay, that are meant for students to recall information. Okay, these tests are usually teacher created. Some of them are even standardized, wherein they are locally um, enforced or used. Okay, so as I have explained in our earlier lessons in assessment of learning, okay, objective tests, they are or they have the greatest advantage of being standardized. Okay? Pwede mo siyang magamit um, sa mas malaking audience, okay, without overly exerting, without overly using resources in checking the performance of the learners. Okay? So, ang pinaka-main strength din daw ng traditional assessment, according to Mueller, of course, is its ability to stimulate recall of learned knowledge. Okay? So, ano po ba yung recall? This is basically when you remember, okay, kung ano yung naituro sa atin. Kaya, kadalasan sa inyo, ang pinakaunang exposure nyo sa mga objective test ay mga simple recalls. What is the definition of ganito, ganyan? Is this statement true or false? Usually, makikita nyo yung mga nakalagay sa module, nakalagay sa libro, yun din yung makikita ninyo sa mga pinakaunang mga exposure ninyo sa objective test. But of course, as the learners become older, the tests that are used on them does not only focus on recall, minsan pumupunta na rin siya sa matataas na levels ng cognitive assessment. Okay? So minsan yung ibang multiple choice test napupunta na sa evaluation. Okay? I'm pretty sure you have experienced that on the quizzes that I have given, di ba? Hindi siya simple recall. Hindi lang siya pag na-memorize mo, okay na. No, you have to apply it, you have to understand it, you have to analyze it. Okay? So, isa sa pinakasikat, ang pinakasanay niya na kayo, na dinaanan nyo ay yung tinatawag na entrance exam natin. Okay? So, lahat naman kayo, o hindi naman siguro lahat, a large majority of you have went through our UEP entrance exam. Okay? So, of course, the use of an objective test in traditional assessment is fundamentally different from authentic assessment, as I have discussed in our earlier discussions. Kasi nga, di ba, ang authentic assessment ay nakafocus sa skills ng learners. Okay? Ang pinaka-similarity sa dalawa, according to Mueller, is this. Okay? They are both Okay, they are both anchored on the institution's mission, vision, and the objectives. Okay, so whether it be traditional or authentic assessment, yan ay lagi at laging babalik sa objective ng iyong lesson. Okay, so ang traditional assessment, naka-anchor siya sa objective, and what it does is test if the learner exhibits a collection of knowledge, whereas authentic assessment tests if the students have the skills, okay, that are necessary for them to function in their workplace or in real life context or environment. Okay, so in a way, you cannot just remove traditional assessment in a classroom. In such a way, hindi ka rin pwede mag-focus lang lagi sa traditional assessment. That is the ideal setup. It's like balancing summative and formative assessment. You also have to balance, you also have to understand that authentic assessment can only measure skill. It does not measure a broad range of knowledge. Okay? So sabi rin dito, ako na pala yung nagsabi dito, okay? So essentially, traditional assessment asks a student, what do you know? Okay? Whereas authentic assessment asks, ano ang kaya mong gawin? What can you do with the things that you have learned? Okay? So, another example, yun nga, nabigay lang naman ako ng example dito sa naka-highlight na paragraph na ito. Okay? Ang traditional assessment, again, this focuses on information accumulation. Okay? Paramihan ng information. We have to recall ha, marami po kasi iba't ibang uri ng information. Remember, meron kang factual knowledge, meron kang conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge. Now, some of these knowledges can be tested by multiple choice, especially yung factual knowledge and um, yung conceptual knowledge. Okay, and it can also measure procedural knowledge to an extent. Okay, ang authentic assessment kasi nakafocus siya doon sa procedural knowledge. Okay, kasama rin sa metacognitive knowledge iyon. Okay, now in a way, or um, in a summary, um, pinag-iba po ni Navarro and Santos yung traditional and authentic assessment into according to five different attributes. So, okay, so let's talk about these attributes kasi alam ko wala akong nailagay na explanation dito. Okay? So number one, we're looking at actions or options. Okay? When you are doing a traditional assessment, usually your students are only selecting a response. Okay? Mga selected response tests iyan. Kasi nga, ang traditional assessment, they have the highest level of objectivity when it comes to assessments. However, sa authentic assessment, what you will require your students is not to select a response. It's to perform a task. Kaya minsan, yung ibang mga essay type test napupunta na sa authentic assessment because they are writing. Okay? However, that depends entirely on how the essay is phrased. Okay? What's important is this. Authentic assessment, may ginagawa ang students. Nasabi ko na rin yun sa ating previous lesson, di ba? You plan your activity and this activity would require students to do something. They might do a demo. They might do a role play. They might do a debate, etc., etc. Okay? Next is the setting. Saan ginagawa ang authentic and traditional assessment? Now, traditional assessment, objective test yan. Okay? So, ginagawa yan sa pen and paper test. Okay? Ang mga scenario doon ay ini-imagine mo lamang, di ba? When you are taking our tests, our quizzes, our exams, all of the scenarios I give there, hindi niya naman siya nakikita. Okay? Ini-imagine nyo lang siya. They are only part of your contrived imagination, okay, or contrived experience. Whereas, ang authentic assessment, since gagawa sila ng task, hindi nila pwedeng i-imagine na gagawin lang yung task. They are going to do it in real life or in a an environment that is simulated by the teacher. Okay? So some of you, ang pinakaunang exposure nyo dito ay yung sa reporting. Di ba? Yung teacher ninyo, magsisimulate siya ng environment na ikaw yung teacher at sila lahat ay students. That is a simulated environment. Okay? Minsan may real life pa. Yung iba, mga marketing students, talagang pinapapunta sa labas to market a certain product. Okay? That is a real life authentic assessment. And that is something that they will do in their real life naman talaga. Okay? So, number three, methods. Okay? Traditional assessment focuses on recall and recognition. Okay? So, nasabi ko na ito kanina. Ang ang traditional assessment, multiple choice yan. Kailangan mong alalahanin or i-recognize what is the best, what is the correct answer. However, ang authentic assessment, pag wala ka talagang alam, wala kang mabubuong kahit ano. Because authentic assessments require you to construct, to synthesize, to create new things or something out of the things that you have learned. Or it also allows you to apply what you have learned. Okay? So, pag wala kang basis sa mga ito, okay, edi hindi ka makakagawa ng kahit ano. Okay? So, let's try to contextualize this. Nasabi natin dati sa Bloom's revised taxonomy that you cannot go to the upper levels without focusing on the lower levels. The explanation is the lower levels provide the basis. Okay? Kaya po kayo, ng mga bata kayo, wala pa po kayong gaanong authentic assessment. What you have are traditional assessment. Authentic assessment is much more suitable for the older learners or for the learners that have already established their knowledge foundation. Okay? So ano po ibig sabihin nun? As a teacher, bago ka magpa-authentic assessment, you have to ensure that the lower levels of the cognitive processes, that is understanding and remembering, dapat meron ng ganun yung iyong mga learners. Okay? So, number 4, sa focus. Ano? Sa traditional assessment teacher structure, what does this mean? It means yung teacher yung gumagawa ng mga tanong. Okay? Yung teacher yung magsiset ng boundaries. Teacher yung magsiset ng options. However, sa authentic assessment, it is student structured. In what way? A student is have their own limitations. Okay? Ang task mo dito is to give them a general idea of what action, of what task you want them to perform. And then ang student na yung magsiset ng limits sa kanilang performance. Okay? Kung yung student ay may budget to buy props, okay? Bibili siya ng mga props na iyon. Okay? Sila yung mag-structure on how each parts, okay? Each parts of the props, each parts of the costume, each part of the dialogue will go into the role play. Sila yung magpaplano ng lahat ng yon. Ikaw, ang sinabi mo lang, ito yung gusto kong makita. Okay? Ito yung inaasahan kong good performance. Ito yung inaasahan kong bad performance. Yun yung sinet mo as teacher. As a student, sila yung magbubuo. They will be the ones to structure a task that will satisfy what you have required them. Okay? And then the outcome is, of course, indirect evidence. That is for traditional assessment. And then direct evidence for authentic assessment. So, ano po ba ito? Okay? Ang scores niyo po sa mga test, usually kino-consider yun as indirect evidence. Why? Because each objective test, merong nakaangkla, merong naka-equip sa kanila na error. Anong error? Ang pinaka-prominent na error ay yung guessing error. Sa true or false test, na dalawa lang yung choice, there is a 50% chance for you to get an answer. Correct? Sa multiple choice na 4, 25%. Sa multiple choice na 5 yung choices, 20%. Okay? Kaya po na I don't know what to feel when you request me na bawasan yung choices. I mean, I can do that. However, I also have to look at that error na na maibibigay ng pagbabawas ng choices. So, kayo pa naging teacher niya, you will look at those things as well. Okay? Kasi yung error na to, this is the catalyst for being an indirect evidence of the scores. Kasi hindi tayo sure, hindi tayo 100% sure. I mean, hindi naman tayo naging 100% sure talaga. But our level of sureness is lower compared to our level of sureness sa authentic assessment. Okay? So, sa authentic assessment kasi direct evidence. Paano direct evidence? Nakita mo, pinerform nila. And yung pinerform nilang task ay yung actual na gagawin nila in real life. Okay? Instead of huhulaan mo kung magaling ba siyang mag-demo base sa scores, sa pedagogical skills, makikita mo na talaga ay magaling mag-demo tong batang ito. Nakita ko talaga yung performance compared sa, siguro magaling tong batang ito kasi nakakuha ng 19/20 sa pedagogical exams niya. Okay? So there's a difference there. And mas gusto ng inyong mga magiging future employers yung demo teaching. Okay? Kaya yung iba, yung mga batang tuturuan ninyo, they must be exposed to demonstrations of their skills related to their future jobs, future careers, hindi naman future, current goals. Kasi po, yun po yung hinahanap. Okay? Yun po yung mas malakas na evidence when it comes to your skills. Okay? Kaya nga kung alam niyo siguro, mas malaki yung percentage ng demonstration teaching sa criteria ng pagpili ng bagong teachers because the demonstration teaching is a direct evidence kumpara sa inyong score sa LET, kumpara sa inyong GPA sa masters. Although may bearing sila, definitely, of course. Pero, mas gusto pa rin nilang tignan, ito yung magaling mag-demo. Diba? So, anyway, those are the differences between traditional assessment and authentic assessment as stated by Navarro and Santos in their 2013 book. Okay? So, of course, si Mueller po noong 2018, meron din po siyang provide na elaborations on this differences. Okay? So, the ones that you see here, yung mga nakaibang font, that is extracted directly from Mueller 2018. So, yung mga naka-normal font po, yan po yung aking interpretation. Okay? So, ngayon, I'm telling you now, itong mga um, different font style ay galing po mismo kay Mueller. Okay? Hindi po galing sa akin yung mga yan. So, anyway, let's talk about this. Selecting a response to performing a task, yung versus nilang dalawa. Okay? So, actually, nai-imagine nyo naman na ito. Right? Because ang authentic assessment nga, di ba, it focuses on an activity. It focuses on either process, okay, a process-based, or project-based assessment. Okay? So, hindi ka na talaga pipili ng task dito. Okay? And what's more important to note here is that when students are performing a task, nakikita mo yung mga hidden curriculum. Mga skills na hindi nakuha ng bata sa klase mo, mga skills na na-develop nila somewhere else that blends perfectly or that blends well with the skill that they are expected to show. Okay? And then contrive to real life. Okay? Life does not show restricted options when solving problems. Okay? Ito yung isang pinakamalaking skill eh. Kasi, yun nga, as I stated here, life does not give you choices. Or it does not give you clear choices. It shows you the problem. It shows you bits of solutions, bits of choices. However, okay, iniiwan niya sa'yo to think what's next. Iniiwan niya sa'yo to think of other alternatives. Hindi siya naka-restrict sa apat na pamimilian lamang. Okay? That's what makes authentic assessment quite well. Kaya sa authentic assessment, minsan makikita mo sa demo teaching, merong technical issue. Biglang na-delete yung file. Biglang hindi gumagana yung technology. Anong gagawin ng teacher? Anong gagawin mo kapag ikaw yung napunta doon? Okay? That is an authentic showcase of skill on how you handle problems na hindi kayang maipakita ng traditional assessment or objective tests. Okay? So next, this one, please allow me to read the entire explanation of Mueller. Sabi niya dito, when it comes to the recall or recognition of knowledge versus construction and application of knowledge. Sabi niya, a traditional assessment can determine whether students have acquired a body of knowledge. Okay? Thus, tests can serve as a nice complement to authentic assessment and a teacher's assessment portfolio. What does this mean? It means, yun nga, yung sinabi ko kanina, you cannot purely remove authentic assessment and traditional assessment in the classroom. Okay? Kasi, it will always boil down what do you know? The abilities that you can showcase in the classroom depends entirely on how good you are in understanding the basic facts related to them. Okay? So, yun po. Hindi po siya talaga pwedeng ipaghiwalay. Okay? So, what can you do with this? Authentic assessment often asks students to analyze, synthesize, and apply in a substantial manner. Aside from authentic assessment forcing you to do a task, it also forces you to do something new with what you have learned. Okay? So, yun po yung isa sa pinaka-importance ng construction. Because, di ba, ang goal natin when we are teaching is to allow students to do something with their knowledge, to create something new. And we can do that not through traditional assessment. We can do that only through authentic assessment. Okay? So, let's move here to the next one. Teacher constructed versus student instructed. So, sabi ni Mueller dito, when completing a traditional assessment, a student can and will demonstrate what has been carefully instructed. Okay, so hello again, class. Now, as I was saying, okay, so who developed the test? Sorry. A student's attention will be focused and limited on what is on the test. Ano ibig sabihin nun? A student is imaginative. Okay? So, ang magandang objective test would allow your students to think outside of the box as well. Okay? However, yung mga traditional assessment kasi, na lalo na yung mga gawa talaga ng mga baguhan na teacher or mga teachers that are, what can you say, very, very traditional, ay nakalimit lamang. Okay? Nakalimit sa definition, nakalimit sa libro, etc., etc. Okay? This is very different from authentic assessment because authentic assessment allows students to make their own choices. Okay? Pag meron silang isang idea na sabi nila, ay, hindi ko siya kaya right now, mag-iisip sila, ano kaya yung pwede kong substitute? Okay? That further improves, and allows the students to apply their creativity sa isang assessment. So, sabi rin ni Mueller dito, ang student-structured task have strengths and weaknesses that must be considered. Anong strengths and weaknesses yon? Yung isa na sabi ko kanina, weakness, na nakabase yung kayang gawin ng bata sa kanyang previous knowledge. Ano pa? You can expect your students to have very limited resource kasi estudyante pa lang sila. Okay? If your task requires them to expend a lot of resources, chances are, mahihirapan silang makagawa ng maayos na um, task na nire-require mo sa kanila. Okay? So, as a teacher, kailangan mo i-balance ito. Okay? Pag medyo mahal yung project, baka kailangan mas damihan ng members sa group or look for alternatives. Okay? So, I think this is the last one here. The last one here is indirect evidence to direct evidence. Okay? So, nasabi ko na ito kanina, na-explain ko na yung errors. Okay? Actually, recall naman na ulit natin yung errors. Okay? Ng ating classroom. Lahat ng uri ng assessment ay may errors, but much more so sa objective assessment. Okay? So, yun nga. As I told you earlier, ang scores, maaaring mahinang evidence lamang siya ng kakayahan ng bata. Kasi nga, it tests knowledge but not skill. Okay? Pwede sana kung nakafocus ka sa isang field that highly focuses on knowledge, like mathematics. Diba? Ang laki ng focus sa mathematics sa knowledge, not more so on the skill, but on how you form and manipulate knowledge. However, in other fields, like social studies, nire-require na marami kang alam, but it requires you uh, more to socialize with others. It requires more of understanding what is in the current society. Okay, di ba talo sa values, OMG. Di ba? You're not only there to apply the concepts of values education, but you have to practice the values that is improvable, okay, or that is manifested in the real life scenario. Okay, so what is sorry, what is to be noted here is of course yung pagkuha natin ng direct evidence. Okay, if you want a student to show a particular skill that na mas creative in nature, na mas open-ended, okay, use authentic assessment. If your goal is to check the broadness of knowledge, you may also use authentic assessment or you may use traditional assessment. It really depends on how you frame these types of assessment. Okay? So sabi ko dito, the time-old problem of translating knowledge into skill could be addressed by the application of authentic assessment. Kasi nga, ang authentic assessment, direct evidence na yan. Hindi mo na kailangan ng iba pang uri ng evidence. Okay? Or at least, pwede pa siguro kung gusto pandagdagan. Okay? So, authentic assessment doesn't have these kinds of errors kasi nga walang guessing. Okay, walang guessing na nangyari sa authentic assessment. Pag wala ka talagang ginawa, wala makikita yung teacher mo. Ang estudyante sa pen and paper test, lalo na sa multiple choice, kahit wala siyang alam, hindi mo makikita yon kasi pumili pa rin siya. Pipili pa rin siya ng isasagot niya. Okay? Tapos, pag naswertehan niya na tama, isipin mo, ay, ang galing ng batang ito. Diba? But, the inaccuracy is there. Nanghula lang pala siya. Wala pala talaga siyang alam. Okay? So, ito ulit. You need these two types of assessment in the classroom. You cannot remove one of them. Okay? Kasi iba yung minimeasure nila. Okay? So, nag-iwan ako ng analogy dito. Okay? If you become a teacher, you have to understand merong mga hinahanap yung mga future employers mo at yung mga future employers ng mga magiging student mo. Okay? So, pag ikaw, pumunta ka sa isang restaurant, anong gusto mo? Yung chef na marunong sa lahat ng ingredients or yung isang chef na alam na nag-practice talagang magluto. Okay? Now, mahirap pumili dito eh. Okay? Kasi, paano yung chef marunong magluto pero hindi alam yung ingredients? But nonetheless, marunong siya magluto. Okay? Makikita mo yun. Alam niya yung nakakain at hindi. Pero yung chef na alam yung ingredients, pero hindi alam pagsama-samahin yung ingredients na yun, nako, medyo doubtful. Okay? Hindi mo alam yung skill niya eh. Ang alam mo lang ay yung knowledge niya. Okay? So, ganun yung nagiging problem natin in choosing. Chances are we tend to choose the people who show the skills rather than the people who show the knowledge. But ideally, as you become older, okay, as you become more experienced, you have to see it as well. How can we translate this knowledge into skill? And how can we improve knowledge to further improve the skills? Kasi yung skills yan, masyadong maraming variables yan sa improvement. Sa bata, okay? Sa effort nila, sa exposure nila sa environment. Pero yung knowledge, kadalasan teacher yung may control dyan. Okay? Kadalasan tayo nagpo-provide ng pathway saan ka mas matututo, ano yung mga knowledge na connected dito. Okay? So, yun po yung nagiging role natin ngayon sa authentic in the intertwining, in the interdependency of authentic assessment and traditional assessment. Okay? So again, ang traditional assessment at ang authentic assessment ay, what do you call this? Two sides of a single coin. Okay? So that is all for the recording. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.